Okay, let's talk about solving the most difficult kind of radical or root equation. And the hardest kind is when you have variables on both sides. Anytime you have variables on both sides, you're going to end up with a quadratic that you're going to need to factor. So let's go through this first example and I'll show you what I mean by that. So we still have that very first step of getting the root by itself. That hasn't changed. So I'm going to get the root by itself by minusing 3. So I'm going to put it over here to give myself some more room. 5x minus 1 equals x minus 3. Now, same second step where I square both sides to get rid of the root. Now, here's where the hard part comes in. Now, a lot of students at this point would write this because they think about distributing that square and get x squared plus 9. That is incorrect. You cannot distribute squares. If I square something, I'm multiplying it by itself. So x minus 3 squared is x minus 3 times x minus 3. And if I distribute that together, so I haven't touched the left side yet, I'm going to get x times x is x squared, x times negative 3 is negative 3x, negative 3 times x, negative 3x, and negative 3 times negative 3, positive 9. If I combine my like terms, I now get x squared minus 6x plus 9. Now, you'll notice that is very different than x squared plus 9. We have that middle term that changes everything. That's why you cannot just distribute a square. Now, because we have something squared, that means we're going to have to factor. But before we factor, we want to get everything to one side and then factor it. So I'm going to minus 5x to both sides and add 1 to both sides. So I can bring everything to one side. So I get x squared minus 11x plus 10 equals 0. Now I can factor it. Think what two numbers multiply to 10 and add to negative 11? Well, x minus 10 and x minus 1. Negative 10 times negative 1 is a positive 10. Negative 10 plus negative 1 is a negative 11. Check. And now that I factored it, I set them both equal to 0 and then solve it. So these are my two solutions. But just like we did before, it is still extremely important that we check those solutions and make sure they're not fake. So let's plug them in. So let's take the 10 first. So I've got square root of 5 times 10, 5x, minus 1 plus 3 equals x. Well, for this one, x is 10. And now let's simplify this. So 5 times 10 is 50, minus 1, and then plus 3. 50 minus 1 is 49. Square root of 49 is 7. And then 7 plus 3, that is 10. So that one checks out. Sweet. Now let's try the 1. So 5 times 1 minus 1 plus 3 should equal x. And in this case, x is 1. So 5 times 1 is 5. 5 minus 1 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. And 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 does not equal 1. That is not true. So x equals 1, that's a fake answer. That one doesn't work. So x equals 10 is our only true answer. So now that we've gone through one example like this, I want you to pause the video and try number 7 right here, going through the same steps that we did right here. And because we have a variable on both sides, you're going to end up distributing, bringing everything to the same side, and factoring. So you should end up with 2 answers that you need to check. So I want you to pause the video, try this one out using this as a blueprint, and then we'll come back and see how you did. Welcome back. Let's see how you did. So remember, our first step is to get the root by itself. This root already happened to be by itself, so we didn't really have to do that. And then the next step was to square it to get rid of the root. So we did that. We squared both sides. And remember, I cannot distribute that square to x squared plus 9. I have to actually multiply it out, which when you distribute it all out, you should get x squared plus 6x plus 9. Then, because this is a quadratic, I need to bring everything to one side, which I did here, and then factor it. So I factored this to x plus 2 and x plus 7, because 2 times 7 is 14, and 2 plus 7 is 9. Set them both equal to 0, so I got solutions of -2 and -7. I plugged -2 in right here, and then I simplified it, and it worked. Then I plugged -7 in down here, and I simplified it and ended up with 4 equals -4. 4 and -4 look close, but they're still not the same. So that is a fake answer. So x equals 2 is -2 is my only answer. So that's it for this last video. You should be able to get started on your paper homework and your online Canvas homework. For your paper homework, you should have question number 3, which is like the first kind of problem we did, where you just need to get the root by itself and solve. Don't forget to check your answer. Then you should have number 6, which is also like the first kind of problem we solved, where you just need to get the root by itself and then get rid of the root. So in this case, the root already is by itself, so you just have to cube it and then go from there. And then the last one on the next page is number 10, where same thing, it's like that first kind of problem. You need to get the root by itself and then solve. And that should be all that you need to get going. Good luck.